Welcome into King Well's album review party. But today we have a very, very incredible album. It's an incredible true story, except it's better than that. Uh, that was a weird
Not to spoil
introduction.
our thoughts on it
I
early,
know,
but
right? So today we're talking about Ultra 85 by Logic. When did this album come out? Because I know it was very recent. Um,
uh, I think
that
it
was
was this
definitely.
month.
Was it
Was
this
it not?
month? Okay. I feel like it was a complete surprise. Um,
August 9th.
August 9th. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So, just got a chance to get a listen to it. Okay, so it was like even within the past month or so. I thought he released it a little bit earlier than that. Um, but yeah, okay. So Ultra 85 by Logic, obviously an incredible artist, and we can't wait to delve and unpack this album. Before we, jump into all of that, how have you been? How's life? Anything new in Ty's world?
Mm, um, just been, I was also surprised about Ultra 85 because I listen to music outside of this podcast as well, and I've been
Hmm.
listening to a lot of like rock in my
What?
spare time.
You listen to music outside of this podcast? That wasn't in the contract agreement.
Oh shoot. I put myself on
You outed
blast.
yourself.
I should have kept it hidden. Um no, and so this was very hidden for me. I had no
Hmm.
idea, no expectation that this was coming out. I just no clue. And then
Hmm.
it did. And I think it was the perfect refresher for me, like in my like the current musical taste that I was in, because I
Hmm.
was just right, like, okay, I could go for some boom bap right now.
Oh
And
yeah.
then Ultra 85 dropped. And so I don't know if that aids in my feelings towards it or what, but how
Yeah.
about you? How you doing?
So it's been a crazy busy week for me. Yesterday I just got done helping out at a festival. As soon as we finish recording this podcast, I have to go do a gig in Colombia. I just figured out I had some licensing issues with a couple of singles, and I just finally was able to figure them out. So they're both dropping this weekend. One is called When
Hmm.
I Grow Up, another one is called Unbelievable. When I Grow Up is a cover of the NF song, and then Unbelievable is an original song by me. I don't know why, but the distributors were giving me so much hassle. So I just had to switch to a new one. And then the new one released it with no problem. And it was like, okay, whatever. This is the choice I should have made from the beginning. I know it was super weird. But yeah, it's just been crazy busy for me, but I am so glad I carved out some time to check out Ultra 85 because it is absolutely phenomenal, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
I like how you mentioned that it was like a perfect palate cleanser, or a perfect
Hmm.
refresher. And I totally agree. I think it completely like if you're feeling stale from hip hop, lately, or if you're feeling like hip hop hasn't been what you wanted it to be. I mean, we covered the Drake Kendrick beef extensively, and like that kind of reignited a lot of um not really old school hip hop, but it kind of brought the focus back on hip hop artists who it should be on. Kendrick Lamar brought him like
Hmm.
way back into the spotlight and everything. But I feel like Ultra 85 is a great refresher even from all of that, and even from all except all the trap, everything that's come out. Ultra 85 is just like the perfect refresher to remind you what hip hop started as and what it still can be, because Logic over these boom bap samples and tracks and instrumentals is just going absolutely insane. And from the very first track, Paul Rodriguez, where I love it so much because, again, there's only two rappers I know that have ever started an album with a 9-minute hip hop track. And that was first just Lupe with Mural on Tetsuo and Youth, and now it also includes Logic with Paul Rodriguez. And he even like called out Lupe on the track. And he was like, this that Lupe '06, this that Lupe last week. He's literally talking about Samurai on the project because he was like, it's that Lupe last week. And as everyone knows, Lupe just released Samurai. And so it's like, it's such a it's so perfect because like you can also tell that like this album was coming together because Lupe didn't really announce Samurai before it came out. It just kind of dropped. So in order for Logic to have that line about this, that Lupe last week, you could tell that he maybe had written Paul Rodriguez or and then went back and added it in when he heard Samurai, or he recorded it at the last minute and threw it at the top of the track. Either way, is brilliant. It is a brilliant decision by him, and the entire album to me is just it's just brilliant. All the his lyrical prowess is on display. His mastery of the flow is on display.
Mhm.
And he also is really good at producing too. And a lot of the tracks he kind of helped produce himself. And so I think it's a masterclass. It's definitely one of my favorite albums of the year, and definitely my favorite Logic album.
Wow. Wow. Even over No Pressure, because I know you really liked No Pressure.
I did like No Pressure a lot. And it's hard because there are some really good standout tracks on No Pressure. Like Dad Bod is one of my favorite ones just because it's so funny. And he has another one on No Pressure that I really like that I can't remember, but it samples that famous Outcast horn samples, but he has like actual
Mhm.
horns playing on it and it sounds fantastic. But what does it for me is that Ultra 85, like again, No Pressure has some standout tracks. Ultra
Mhm.
85 is a cohesive project because like we were talking
Mhm.
about it the other day, there's not really that many standouts on the track, like nothing that besides Paul Rodriguez that makes you like come back to it. It
Mhm.
feels like you got to listen to the entire album. It is an entire cohesive project that you got to like really take in all together, especially with all the skits that are on it. And to me, that's
Mhm.
why Ultra 85 gets the nod. It's close with No Pressure, probably like not very much distance between them. Both are great albums, but I think the skits and how funny they were and how much they contributed to the story and made it feel like an entire album rather than just a collection of songs is what puts Ultra 85 at the top for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it definitely has that stronger cohesion throughout. It is definitely something that every song, thanks to the skits, they serve as really nice bridges between tracks where the end of one song may include like a 10-second skit that then leads into another
Hmm.
track that will then lead into a hard skit that will then lead into another like two-track run, and it just kind of flows like that for the whole 20 minutes, or for the whole 20 track listing. And for an album that is like over an hour long, it is incredible how well it can flow like
Hmm.
that. I think for me there are many moments where I'll listen to it all the way through and I think, oh wow, this right here, this is like my favorite track. I love this part. And then I'll switch. I'll go like 5 tracks later, and then I'll say, no, 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 this is my favorite part. And then another few tracks, no, 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 this is my
Yeah.
favorite part. And it
Yeah,
keeps
exactly.
going like that. And at the end, it makes me just think, well, maybe it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And like when I think about, because like I'm going back to some of Logic's releases, because of course he like retired after his sixth album, No Pressure, which again I still think was his best, after even after the Incredible True Story. And he's been putting out an album every year pretty much since 2014. The only year he didn't was 2016. And then Everybody was kind of like his breakout hit. That his fourth album, I thought it was okay. It didn't really stand out that much to me. Um, and then his fifth album, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, same thing. I thought it was okay. It wasn't incredible, like No Pressure was. But like Ultra 85 is making me want to check out Vinyl Days and College Park because I missed both of those. Because I listened to No Pressure, that was supposed to be his last album, and then he released the Bobby Tarantino 2 mixtape, and that one I didn't really like. There were some like pretty cool tracks on it and pretty some good tracks on it. Like the in the intro to the whole mixtape is really funny because he does like a whole Rick and Morty sketch. It's pretty
Hmm.
funny. Um, but overall, that mixtape felt like I'm not gonna say beneath him, but it's like you just released No Pressure, and then you give us like Bobby Tarantino 2 should have came out before No Pressure because No Pressure was like peak Logic, and it felt like because it was Logic, because you just dropped such a big project, that mixtape felt like a step back. But now I'm like,
Mhm.
man, I gotta go check out Vinyl Days and I gotta go check out College Park to see if this is what he was doing. Like if he was doing all of this, these past couple of years. Because like I said, this album, Ultra 85, is just absolutely fantastic. Oh no, it was Bobby Tarantino 3 he
Three.
released in
Okay.
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, not 2. My bad.
Yeah, for Vinyl Days in College Park, I didn't really care for them.
So you listen to them?
Listening, I did, and they were more forgettable for me.
Hmm.
Um, I think too, it should be of note that I don't think either of us are really big into the ongoing lore of Logic's albums because this isn't the first time that we've had Kai and Quentin as like the two main characters. Obviously, they featured in the Incredible True Story as
Hmm.
well as the AI voice whose name I forget, like whose name it was before. I I forget. And
Yeah.
that is not the thing that draws us in, but I do like I think at least on Ultra 85, the bit of lore that we get regarding those characters, it feels self-contained in a way that I personally, not being super deep into that part, feel like I need to know to appreciate it because I think Kai and Quentin have their own separate dynamic and little arc of Kai feeling more confident and hopeful for the future
Right.
uh, through Quentin's philosophy of life
Hmm.
uh, and through their friendship. And I like that little mini arc that is spun in between some of Logic's best and most like vulnerable tracks to date. I think there are definitely some. I know it's hard to pick out like strong tracks that feel like individuals, but I think for me, some of my biggest standouts would probably be towards the end with, say, Teleport. I really loved Teleport, along with
You
Once
bugging
Upon a
me.
Time.
Like zzz, 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 zzz,
Zit, 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 zit.
zzz, 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 zzz.
I love that.
That was a good one.
Um, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it almost feels a little gimmicky of, structuring um all of your rhymes based on Quentin Tarantino movies. But to me, it just kind of like it feels very fitting for Logic because
Yeah,
like dude is clearly just like a big nerdy movie buff
I know.
and loves Quentin Tarantino movies. Like if the rest of his discography didn't prove that, and he just makes a song, and that like gets to the core of what makes this album great because Logic just feels like he's operating in his own little bubble.
Hmm.
Like he does not care what anybody else thinks. And in many ways, this album is like the most like um uncritiquable and yet like a perfect album in the sense that it's just like, hey, this is exactly what I feel. I literally do not care about anything else. I just want to put my thoughts and feelings into music, and that's it. And in that sense, it's like peak art because it's so like it feels so unexternally motivated. It's all from within and passion and drive. And that's like my favorite art to consume of any kind. I want to see people living through a medium. And it's so great that we get to see it without any other distraction. And
Hmm.
so I think that's the like special sauce to me that would bump this above. I'm sorry, Will. I think this would bump it above something like a Samurai because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I think Ultra 85 means more to Logic than say Samurai does to Lupe in their
Hmm.
respective cases.
I think Ultra 85 was very what's the right word I'm looking for? I think it was very purposeful. Like Logic kind of made this album with this reasoning behind it. And I think Lupe just kind of did Samurai. Like we found some beats, like he had a style that he wanted to do, and then
Mhm.
he just kind of did it and laid it down and then put it into an album and then released it. But I think Ultra 85 sounds more purposeful. Like Logic purposely wanted to get back to some of that boom bap classic hip hop to connect with the entire album. And I think Lupe was expecting all of the positive reception to Samurai, but I don't think he was expecting people to start crowning it as like one of his best albums ever. I don't think he was. Like I think when Logic made Ultra 85, he was like, I want something that's going to top everything I've done before. And for
Mhm.
some people, this might top No Pressure. For some people, it might not. But it feels like Lupe wasn't really trying to do that with Samurai. He just was
Mhm.
like, hey, here's some great music. And it ended up being one of his best albums. And some people are saying it's his best one since either The Cool or since Food and Liquor. Like that's kind of the reception
Mhm.
in the hip hop community. People are
Mhm.
absolutely loving it and saying that it's better than almost anything he's done before.
Mhm.
Um, and those people haven't listened to Tetsuo and Youth. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so I
You
think I
will
kind of
you will
understand.
stand on the Tetsuo and Youth Hill until the day you die. Like
Yeah,
that is
that's the Lupe album. That's the one
that's
right
the
there.
Lupe album.
I think the difference for me and why I still give Samurai the nod is partly because it's Lupe. Like that's partly it. But also
Mhm.
because I think Logic is completely right when he says this, that Lupe '06, this, that Lupe last week. Because I
Mhm.
think a lot of the lyricism that Lupe uses and is known for, and people have studied for years, rappers that have been influenced by it, I think Logic is one of them. And I think
Mhm.
Ultra 85 is a product because we had Lupe Fiasco back in '06. Now we're here in 2024 and we can get an album from Logic like Ultra 85. Because again, Logic, he's also not one of those rappers who's afraid to talk about who inspired him. You know, a lot of rappers will, they want to
Right.
feel like they've done it all their own and like this is all. And it's like, you don't like saying who inspires you doesn't take anything away from that. And so I think, Logic was inspired by Lupe on this specific album and I think Samurai helped inspire this specific album or parts of it. And so I think, and I think I just like the lyricism that Lupe has on Samurai is a little bit, it's very, very close for me. Like Ultra 85
Mhm.
and Samurai are like neck and neck. I still have Samurai as my number one album this year, but Ultra 85 is right there at number two. And I actually, you were mentioning all the Quentin Tarantino movies. I actually just watched Once Upon a Time in
Mhm.
Hollywood.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen it before?
I have not. No, it's a
Haven't seen
blind
it?
spot
Okay.
for me.
I won't ruin it for you. But I forgot that this track was on there. And yeah, like the way that Logic is like so obsessed with like Quentin Tarantino movies and all that stuff. And it feels like the way I'm obsessed with Marvel or something, and I might make a whole song about like Marvel characters or something like that. Like it's such a cool way to like delve into it's like you can be unapologetically nerdy and delve into it and help it to fund your own art, oh not fund but inspire your own art, and it's beautiful. And I think Logic is one of those artists
Mhm.
that like ever since 2020 and COVID, for a musician who's like releasing music in that game, we've really switched a lot into the singles game, and Logic is still unapologetically dropping albums because
Mhm.
again for an artist with the era of streaming like really taking off, and especially during the pandemic when you didn't have a whole lot of tours and concerts going on, so it was hard to like make money. You just kind of had to release stuff where you didn't have a whole lot of tours and concerts going on. It kind of became and people's attention, and with TikTok and social media, people's attention spans have just been getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And suddenly, like, it doesn't really make sense for an artist to release an entire album when it's like that's going to cost you obviously a lot of money. People may listen to the whole thing, maybe not. And it's like, and with the way this and with the way the Spotify algorithm grows, if you release instead of releasing a 12-song album every year, you're going to get more I guess more on the release radars and more on playlists, more chance to get on playlists and stuff like that and attract new fans if you drop one song every single month over that 12-month period. Like so it's just kind of became like a singles game, just like release singles, and attract new fans. And so and it hasn't really happened to like the big top tier artists. Like the bigger the artists, you don't really have to do that. Like you can still just release albums. But like
Hmm.
Ultra 85, like just a quick comparison to like Sabrina Carpenter's album, Short and Sweet, it feels like every song on there she could have released as a single if she really wanted to. And like they
Hmm.
call that a waterfall release. So like if she really wanted to, all those songs could have been singles. And then they all could have been on the album because they all
Hmm.
felt like they had that like single crossover. But with
Hmm.
Ultra 85, I don't know if there's a single song on here that like I would have released as a single
Right.
because none of these really have like a single energy to them. They're
Right.
all just part of a larger project. If you take one out and try to release it, you're
Right.
gonna miss the vibe, the feel of it. And like that's so I say all of that to like come together into like this is an album. It is unapologetically an album. And I
Yeah.
really love it because it's reminding us that like we can still like this is the kind of project I'd want to make one day. Like hopefully I'll get to that point where I'll be able to do something
Hmm.
this creative and pour this much into it. But it's like yeah, that's like none of these songs on here I feel like would really work as singles, but they're
No.
all so fantastic, you know. And I think like Interstellar was a standout for me because I love the feature by Lucy Rose. And Logic's verses are obviously incredible. Um, but the way they mixed her voice and the way that she was singing on that song was that was one of those standout hooks that was in my mind. I couldn't remember the name of the song at first until I looked at the track list, and then I was like, oh, Interstellar was one of those ones that really stood out for me. So this is one of those standout albums that like yeah, there's no skips. There's nothing that doesn't like bring the full story. I wouldn't drop a single track from this album, and I
Hmm.
really do think it's some of Logic's finest work. Um, it's like I was mentioning the other day, I was like, if I could base, I'm like, I still think Witchy by Gambino and K Tronada might be like my favorite song this year. And like it
Hmm.
almost makes me want to put keep K Tronada's album at number two.
Hmm.
Um, but it's an entire album, not just a song. So like for me right now, it's definitely Samurai, very close Ultra 85, and then K Tronada's album as far as what's come out this year.
Yeah, I think me, I'm just a sucker. I feel like I'm really easy to please in the sense that if you just if you just pour your heart and soul into something,
Hmm.
regardless of how it really sounds, like I feel like it's anybody can pick up that you just did pour your heart and soul into it. And for me, that makes it automatically like perfect.
Hmm.
And I love seeing someone feel so passionate about what they put out. And like you don't open an album with a 9-minute track unless you feel passionate. Like it's just like you cannot, the amount of work that goes into crafting what he did here just cannot be done unless this is something that you just live for, unless you just love music at its
Hmm.
core and you want to share that. And in many ways, I think it's easier. I think it can be easy for artists who are as big as Logic to get really um kind of lose touch with like the roots of what brought them in the first place, to lose touch with why, the kid inside of them that was inspired by a lot of artists to then make music. And I mean this as a compliment. Logic's always kind of felt like a little kid grown up in the sense that like he never lost touch with that initial like reasoning for wanting to make music. And it bleeds in through like the humor, through the style of rap
Hmm.
that he makes for the most part. And most importantly, I think it bleeds through with the passion, because it just feels like a kid with unlimited resources doing what he wants to do. in the best way possible. And to be and I think he lives with his uh like his he's more comfortable living with his vulnerabilities on his sleeve. I mean, he always has. I mean, he's very famous for being the rapper who wrote a song about suicide like
Hmm.
way back when. Um, but this is I think that part is never left him either. And if anything, I think he's just blended that in with the storytelling part
Hmm.
better over time. And then we have this point where we have this little sci-fi story mixed with all of his own like personal vulnerabilities while not letting either one overpower the other and just kind of letting them fit together.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of skill, and it's a technique that we just don't see a lot in many
Hmm.
other artists. So this is an album that doesn't come around all the time and I think should be celebrated.
Oh, by far, by far. I think I gotta listen to it again. I really wanted to listen to it again before we were able to get on this episode because I need to listen to it and then late registration back to back to really decide because to me, it's close of being the best skits of any album. Like right now, Late Registration is the top one for me as far as skits go, in hip any genre really. They're most prevalent in hip hop, but for any genre, because the skits on Late Registration are just so hilarious. And that's what, and we talked about it when we did our top albums a little while ago. They're so hilarious that it kind of puts it up there for me. But Ultra 85s are just as I don't know if they're just as funny, but they tell like a deeper story. And I'm trying to weigh like, okay, the funniness of those ones versus the deeper story, because these ones were also funny. They just weren't as funny. So I'm like, which one had better skits? And like I'm kind of leaning towards Ultra 85, even though it's hard for me to like say it because late registration was so iconic. But like I think it might have the best skits of any album ever released, like hip hop genre, any genre.
Mhm.
And yeah, I definitely think that this like you said deserves to be praised, deserves to be celebrated. There was this song, Logic, ironically was on it. I always talk about if you ever want to look at, to me, what are the three pillars of hip hop, three pillars of a good rapper,
Mhm.
check out Alarm Clock by Static Selecta, right? Because it has Absol, John Connor, and Logic featured on the track. And each one of them, it feels like they probably didn't do this on purpose, right? But each one of them, when on their verses, they highlighted a specific aspect of hip hop that makes it great, right? So, like the first verse, Absol, one of the most lyrical rappers in the game. I think he's probably the only one that can even come close to Lupe because his lyricism is just off the charts. I
Mhm.
kind of think he's a better lyricist than Kendrick Lamar, and I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but I'm
Mhm.
just like when I compare Absol's verses to some of Kendrick's, I'm like, Absol's just on another level.
Mhm.
I'm really sad I'm not gonna be able to see him in LA. Oh, it still makes me sad. But anyway,
You're not
um,
able to make it either.
no, no. So anyway, he on his verse on Alarm Clock, it's super lyrical. Metaphors,
Mhm.
double entendres, similes, all of that lyrical aspect of hip hop. And that's always been my favorite part of hip hop. And to me, that's what takes you from a good rapper to a great rapper if you're really, really lyrical. John Connor's verse is all about flow. He switches it up with like triplets, um, lots of start and stop kind of flows, and his flow is way better than Absol's on the first one, but he's not nearly as lyrical. He doesn't really have many like lyrical punchlines on it. He's just finding creative ways to mix up the rhythm that he's rapping with on the beat, which is that's your flow. And the most technically gifted rapper in that area that I'd say that most people would say would be Eminem. He's obviously incredibly lyrical, but like his flow is top tier to nobody. But on the third verse, where Logic comes in, that's where we get into storytelling. And that's where Logic tells a story of how he grew up. And to me, that's always been like the toughest part of rapping for me, like storytelling. I don't really do it very often and I don't really do it well. I don't know why it's harder for me to write verses about like growing up and telling a story with it. But I think that's Logic's strongest suit, and he might be one of the best storytellers of our generation. Maybe like he belongs on a list. If you're looking at top storytellers in hip hop, Logic belongs
Mhm.
on that list. And you can tell
Mhm.
with this album, you can tell with the skits, you can tell with all of it. Like he's just one of those fantastic. And to me, that's one of those third pillars of hip hop. You know, lyricism, flow, and storytelling. And Logic has completely mastered the storytelling aspect.
Mhm.
I remember we were talking yesterday about like the skits, and I'm like I would love to have like skits on my album, but I'm also like afraid to put them in because like I feel like I'm not a writer or like a comedy writer or anything like
Mhm.
that, and I'd want them to be like funny and not like cheesy or anything like that. And I'm like, I feel like I
Right.
would need to like almost hire a comedy writer to do it. And then like we looked at Bando Stone in the New World earlier this year, and I'm like, Donald Glover is a writer and an
Literally
actor.
a comedy writer.
Right. He literally worked on 30 Rock. So it's like if you think
Mhm.
about any artist who should have the best skits on their album, it should be Donald Glover. But we're over here going crazy over Ultra 85. So I just thought that was really ironic that like again, to me, Bando Stone probably should have had skits like this in Ben is Funny. I mean, we'll see when the movie ever comes out, if it ever does. But yeah, overall, Ultra 85, phenomenal. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. You won't be doing us a favor, you'll be doing yourself a favor. You won't even be doing Logic a favor. You'll be doing yourself a favor. That's
Dude,
how strongly I feel about this album.
yeah, he lives up to his internal philosophy that he kind of sets up at the end of Paul Rodriguez, where he says, I make music for those who love it and not those who don't. And this
Mhm.
feels like an album for people who just love music at its core.
Yep. So if you're anything like us, you will love this album. And even if you're not, you will love this album.
Mhm.
So check it out. If you've already checked this out, leave your thoughts below. Let us know what you thought. If you took got a chance to listen to it, Um, we still got, I'm trying to think of the next album that we're gonna do. I think we're probably gonna do Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter.
Probably.
Next. Yeah, yeah. So that'll be I got a chance to listen to it, and so that'll be pretty fun. So that'll probably be the
And
one we do next. We might even have a couple of guest stars on the episode. Who knows? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. But yeah, no, thanks for joining in. And yes, Ultra 85 is one of those classics. I really do think Logic made a classic right here.
and do yourself another favor too. Check out those two King Whale tracks that are dropping soon too. If you want to talk about doing yourself a favor, like do your ears a favor. Like let's get them cleaned out with some absolutely great tracks coming up.
Well, thank you for that shameless plug, my man.
Yes. It's
Really
shameless if I
appreciate
do it.
that.
If you do
Yeah.
it, it's pretty
It doesn't
shameful,
really,
but
yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
can do that's why you have me.
Hmm?
I can do the plug.
Okay, that's not the only reason why I have you, but it does help a lot.
It's just nice when things work out.
hmm All right, guys, we will catch you next time. Again, check out Logic Ultra 85. And if you have another album that you're really interested in listening to us do, let us know in the comments because we will do it. You know, we are completely willing to adjust our schedule to add an album that you're really feeling that you want us to check out. So let us know, and we'll see you next time.
Till then.